All right, guys, this is exciting. Welcome to the Tills4Thrills podcast, and this is our first bonus episode. So we really appreciate you guys. We appreciate all your support. If you like what you see, comment down below, like, subscribe, share with all your friends and family. Hit that bell icon for notifications in the future when we do upload something. With that said, I'm excited today for this bonus episode. If you remember back to the first episode, we talked about our mutual friend Carter Brooks, who will be joining us today. Unfortunately, he'll just be audio. He doesn't have his camera set up. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and introduce my co-host, Nick Straub, everyone.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Nick here. You've probably seen me from the other episodes, as like Julian said, I'll be your co-host for this evening. Just like what he said, super excited, man. Haven't got a chance to catch up with Carter here in a little bit. So it's gonna be really awesome to get to sit down and have a discussion about, the inner workings of the life of Carter.
Yeah, no, for real. So with that said, I am going to unmute him. Go ahead and introduce yourself, starting with your name, what your occupation is, or what you currently do, and where you're at.
Hey, Julian, thanks so much for having me on, man. So I'm Carter Brooks. I'm the singer and guitar player for Topline Addicts, and I'm currently in Dallas. So I'm really stoked to be here, guys. Thanks so much for inviting me on.
Oh, dude, it's an honor.
Oh my God. Yeah, we were, man, I remember when you and I were stationed together, and I think it was probably a month or two after we had met. We were already at your house, jamming on whatever. I brought all my drums over and brought my guitar amp, and man, we were just annoying the crap out of your neighbors, and it was awesome.
I remember like when we first met, you were my immediate supervisor, my E5, and sometimes I'd talk to you and you'd give me that little like, I'm sorry, what was that? And I'd have to be like, oh shit, he's a sergeant. Okay, yeah. Hey, Sergeant Carter or Sergeant Brooks,
Oh
and,
yeah.
It was just like a real funny back and forth relationship that we had. And I would always tease you because the whole fraternization thing was a big deal in the Army that me and Nick discussed, or well, Nick and I discussed in the first episode. And I'd be like, hey man, come over for some Dos Equis, and you'd like kind of stop and think about it, and you're like, nah, I'm good. And then it was that mango margarita trick that got you.
Mango margaritas, man. Oh yeah, that did it.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, after we were hanging out for a while, I remember we were at the motor pool, and I think we were in like one of the, either in one of the bays or we were in the office or whatever it was. And like the whole platoon is up there, and you're like, hey, Carter, what's going on? And I'm just thinking like, why? Why did you have to do this in front of everybody? So I just look at you, and I don't even say anything. I just point at the ground.
Oh yeah, just a whole.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
so I
PC
know.
Free today?
Oh yeah, it's always free.
It's always free.
I know Nick had an interesting question before the show started that I kind of wanted to highlight on here, about some of your music and some of the things that you're doing currently with the band. So Nick, I'm going to go ahead and put you on screen and ask away, man, because it was a really good question.
Man, so I was just curious, like how's the band going, man? I mean, I know you got out of the military, and while you were in, you and I and Dakota would always talk about, you're like, one day, man, I'm gonna get out and I'm gonna start a band. And the crazy thing is, you did. You know what I mean? You actually did it. So like how's that going? You know what I mean? Like, are we doing live shows? Like, what's going on? What's the 411?
Dude, yeah. I mean, it's fucking crazy thinking about like how that was something that we had talked about, and then getting out, like actually moving that forward. And I remember when I first got out and was living in Washington and just trying to figure out how do I write and record my own music, and how do I find people to be in this band. I mean, it was a horrible like learning experience. Because you just don't know what you don't know, and it just feels like being a private. Like you're just, oh man, it's awful. But I had kind of assembled the first group of people that I thought would be a good fit, and that kind of got it to work for a little while. I mean, I was still scared to sing in front of them even when we had first started, and after a few months of practicing, of course, people start to cycle through. Because some people are like, oh, cool, like I like this, but this just isn't the band that I want to be in. I'm like, got it. So we finally settled on a lineup that was feeling pretty good. And we'd booked a couple of shows, and it was maybe like 3 weeks before our first show. Our guitar player left, and then because he left, like the drummer and the other guitar player quit. So I'm just thinking, oh man, like I just look over at my bass player and I'm thinking, dude, please, I need you to stay in the band.
Please, bro, please.
Please, bro.
So it's just kind of like a tidal wave of like, once one left, everybody was like, all right, and you were like, please.
And
I guess that really gives a new meaning to when it rains, it pours.
Really does, man. And I mean, luckily we'd been practicing for a long enough time at that point. It was completely different. Like I knew what I needed out of each musician, and I had a much better understanding of, hey guys, like we're gonna show up and this is what we're gonna do. And I think for a while I was trying really hard to just not be Sergeant Brooks, with like how I would talk to everybody. And what I realized, like, well, I did that and then nothing got done because I was just trying to be really casual about everything. And they actually didn't want that. Like they wanted a lot more structure than just, oh no, it's cool, man, we'll play whatever you want to play. Like when I switched it over to just, hey guys, here's the time that I need you to be here and this is what we're working on. And
so real quick, do you think it's because like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do, this is what I'm looking for, like maybe they immediately expected you to be the leader?
I mean, I think that was part of it. I mean, they expected me to be the leader. So, I mean, because they were my songs and because I was the one that was, calling them over. But I'd always thought starting out, oh, well, these are just the ones we're starting with. And then I'll get some guys together and then we'll all just be kind of on the same level. And there's some bands that can do that. Like you think of bands like Rush or Green Day, where everybody's just kind of, working on stuff together all the time. And that's great for those bands. That's just not something that I really know how to do, or maybe it's just something I'm not a good fit for, with having a really, specific sound that we're trying to create. So I think when I had those guys come through, and especially when we were 3 weeks from this first show, getting those new guys in, we didn't have time to, look around and go, hey, should we rework this or change this song? It was just, hey, like we can worry about that later, but this is the show that we have to do in 3 weeks. Like here it is.
Right.
So, they made it happen. It was great. And, some of them stayed for a little bit, but, it kind of cycled through again a little bit. And we just felt like we had this kind of rotating lineup for such a long time. And it's really, really tough because we put a lot of effort into our shows. If you're playing local shows, then you have a lot of the same audience coming every time. So you don't want to punish those people for coming to support you by just giving them the exact same thing that they saw last time. So, I want it to feel more like a sequel than a rerun. And when those guys, when those guys left, and I'm thinking, oh man, I got to get new guys trained up and rework the show and try to iterate on it, make it better. I mean, that takes so much time to do. And I think looking back, I probably had a little too much, maybe I was too precious about some parts of that experience. I think all of it was helpful in learning what it takes to put on a great show. Because we've also seen these other bands that they'll get up on stage and everybody just stands behind their pedal boards, and it's just, maybe they sound really good, but they're not really engaging to watch, and that's such a big part of it. So, this past year has been insane. We were just thinking, let's work on getting a record done. So we got to say no to everything that's not making new songs. And, we had our keyboard player like had pieced out, and then that sent a new sort of tidal wave, like you were saying, where we had a couple more people leave after that. So now that it's just me and the drummer and we're kind of figuring it out again, that's why we're doing what we can to get show ready now. But there's just so much that goes into it.
Right. I mean, it's starting a band's a completely, complicated process, especially when you don't know what you're doing in the beginning.
Oh yeah, no, exactly.
Well, hey man, real quick, while we got you here, do you want to talk about how you and I met?
Oh my God, dude.
You remember that rainy night? That cold rainy night?
Dude, it was a cold, rainy night. And I was at the barracks, like the smoke pit.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I just remember I'm just chain smoking cigarettes because I got nothing else to do. And it's like a Friday. I think it was a weekend, right? It was a Friday or a Saturday.
Yeah,
Something like that.
yeah. It was a 4-day weekend.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. It was a 4-day too. And man, I just remember you kind of you came up and we got to chatting, and I think you had just asked me, like, it was either where the PX was.
Yeah, it was something like that. Like, I was asking you where the PX was because I didn't have any civilian clothes, and I was shaking like ass meat. I was freezing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It was raining and cold, and
yeah. And I just remember I'm like, well, I mean, it's down over here, but like, do you have a car? Because like clearly you're new.
Yeah.
You're like, no. I'm like, all right. And I don't think I had a car yet either. No, I didn't have a car yet. And
yeah, you didn't.
So I remember, I don't remember if it was that night, or if it was the next morning. I think it might have been that night.
It was that night.
That did I get Dakota, and then like the three of us just rolled out?
No, so Dakota wasn't there. You were like, hey man, like, do you want to go inside and like put on a sweatshirt? And I was like, I don't own any sweat. You know what I mean? What the Army issued is what your boys got.
Yep.
And you were like, damn, that's crazy. And then you kind of like messed around on your phone for a minute, and you were like, do you want to come with me? And I was like, sure, I get, you know what I mean? Like, cause you had already told me like you were an NCO, so I was like, this dude ain't gonna, do some weird shit to me. I mean, at least I hope, otherwise we gonna get to scrapping. But I was like, yeah, sure. And then we walked over to like the street, and like an Uber pulled up.
That's right. Yeah, I called Uber. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we got in the Uber, and the Uber took us to Walmart, and I was like, okay, like bro needs to go to Walmart for something. Like, yeah, I'm down. I'm down to make a friend or whatever. And we start like going through Walmart, and you and I were like still talking. You were telling me like, oh yeah, man, like what kind of clothes like do you normally wear? And I was like, well, like I don't really shop for myself very often. I kind of just pick stuff here and there. And you were like, well, like, pick out some clothes. And I was like, well, like I don't really have like a lot of money, so it's it's not really like that. And you're like, no man, don't worry about it. And I was like, what do you mean don't worry about it? What are you talking about? You're like, nah man, I get it. And I thought you were bullshitting until sure shit, man, we got to the checkout and you paid for I think it was $200 of civilian clothes for me because I was shaking like booty meat at a club on a Friday night and I was cold. And to this day, I don't think anybody's ever done anything like that for me. Not that like people haven't helped me out or anything like that, but I'm just saying like right like in the moment, and it really kind of like was like a testament as to like the type of person that you were, because I had got there like a day beforehand, and I was just fortunate enough to be able to get my barracks room. Otherwise, I don't know what I would have done. But and 24 hours later, I kind of see like this NCO who's like handling business, like taking care of stuff, and like you didn't have to do that, like not the way that you did it. So like I still talk about that to this day. I'm like, people are like, what's like the craziest thing that like somebody's done for you? And I'm like, shit, when Carter bought me all those clothes, man. And then like we ended up becoming like best friends, and like we met Dakota, and before I know it, we're in Sonic's drive-through with straws on our nose, like being goofy, and like going to see Bohemian Rhapsody when it came out, and,
Yeah, man. Oh my
all
God.
types of stuff. Do you remember that? Like Dakota and I still being like a little bit drunk, and it's like 10 o'clock in the morning. You're taking us to Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my God, dude. Yeah, I
Good
mean,
time.
dude, I just remember I remember we got to chatting, and I remember being in a similar spot to you when I had first gotten to Fort Eustis, and I was just thinking, because like they just drop you at
Yeah.
the brigade or whatever, and then like you don't know anything about, you don't know where anything is, you don't even know where your unit is,
Yeah.
you don't know how to in process, like, because you've just been herded around the whole time, so it's the first time
Yeah.
you're like by yourself, and you're thinking like, what is this?
And what am I
So,
gonna do?
yeah, I mean, it sucks. I mean, there's a lot of like, getting out that's sort of put into perspective, but at least like even when you're by yourself, first duty station, whatever, and you're just like that dumbass E2, that's just that's just like running around like a little lost puppy. At
Yeah.
least every other enlisted person remembers that they were also that guy.
Right.
So, even when you're kind of alone, or you feel like you're having this, first day of school kind of weirdness, like everybody remembers being in that spot. And
it's really funny to me because when
yeah,
I got to Fort Hood, just like in general, I received a little bit of like, help running around and everything. So when you're married going into the military, a lot of the times at your first duty station, they don't have to worry about issuing you a barracks room. They're going to say, hey, go get your house, like go get that squared away, like leave early through the in processing.
Go to housing.
Yeah. And so I was able to immediately get a house, immediately get into my car, which I didn't know I was supposed to not do while I was in reception. And then finally moved into my unit, which, I mean, it was a pretty smooth transition. I think the worst part for me was when I got to Fort Jackson a couple years ago, or almost a couple years ago now. They didn't even know I was coming. They like nobody knew. So that's when I was the lost puppy trying to figure my way around everything.
see, like every single person has that experience at some point.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, that was kind of thing for me, kind of seeing you in that spot, Nick. I was just thinking, man, like this guy's me,
This dude's new. This dude doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
because when I got there, what was it? It was called Building 650, like where you in and out process and stuff. And when I first got there, like they didn't, like when you get off of like the plane or like the bus or however you got there, like they give you like a sheet from your AIT of like, this is who you need to call. So we landed at like midnight. So I call this phone number, and on Fort Eustis, like half of the installation is AIT for aviation. So like Black Hawk mechanics, like Apache mechanics. And so I call this phone number, and it's an AIT like barracks CQ phone number, like Bravo company of like some aviation like AIT battalion. And some female staff sergeant answered, and she was like, so and so Bravo company, rada rada, you know, like who am I speaking to? I was like, hey, how's it going? This is, I think it was like a PV2 at the time. I was like, this is PV2 Straub. I just got off the plane with my coworkers essentially from AIT. They told me to call this number. She goes, well, you have the wrong number. Click, and hung up. And I went, fuck. And I'm like, what am I gonna do?
Oh my
So I had to
God.
go get like a hotel. I paid for the hotel for like 6 of us. And everybody was like, oh, S1 will like pay you back. They didn't, right? So
They
the
said,
next
fuck
day,
no.
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
they're like, oh yeah, they'll pay you back, dude, for sure. And it was like $400. So I was like, hell yeah, man, I'm gonna get my $400 back. Man, they didn't give me that shit back. So the next day we go to building 650, like all six of us, and we're like in processing. And they didn't tell me what unit I was going to. They just told me like what battalion I was in. I didn't even like I knew what a battalion was, but like they were like, oh, you're a part of so and so battalion. And I was like, okay, you know. So I was like, all right, cool. And like before I knew it, like we're all standing outside of the building with our bags in our hands and dicks in our hands and everything. And like this dude pulls up and he was like, hey man, are you so and so? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, hey, this is my name. Get in. And I was like, shit, all right. So I get in. This dude takes me to my unit and like I meet my platoon daddy, Sergeant First Class, and he was like, hey man, so you private so and so, right? I was like, Roger. And he was like, hey man, look, we're not doing all that. I found out that they did do all that, right? Because I got hemmed up for it like 2 days later. But you have any questions? And I was like, yeah, man, who the fuck are y'all? You know what I mean? Like what's the name of this unit? Where the fuck am I? You know what I mean? Like I don't have a barracks room. Like I haven't been to CIF. I don't have dick. You know what I mean? I just have like my PTs and like some shit from basic. He's like, oh yeah, man, like they'll get you situated. But he told me like I came in on a Thursday, like starting a 4-day weekend, starting a Friday, Monday 4-day. So he was like, look, and it was already like noon by the time that I had got to like talk to him. So he was like, look, man, you're going to have a couple hours to like like you're going to do like a couple hours of in processing and then like we're going to go on a 4-day. Like, so we need to get you like a barracks room. So I'm like, all right. They take me to S1 and you know how S1 is. They're barely at work ever.
Oh yeah.
So like we show up at like 1 and they're like just sit here. And so I'm like, all right, cool. I'm sitting there with like my, like the packet that they give you. Like I got my little packet and I got my little in processing sheet and I have to like check stuff off. I'm sitting at S1 waiting. And like finally the dude that brought me was like, he walks in and he was like, has anybody came to get you yet? And I was like, no. And he goes, man, fuck this. He's like, let's go. So I'm like, bet. Cause I've just sat here for 45 minutes for no reason. So I'm like, bet. So we roll out. He takes me to housing and they were like, well, we can't give you a barracks room. And like the dude was like, bullshit. He was like, nah, he gonna get a barracks room. And so like they went back and forth for a little bit, and then like he told me to wait outside, and I imagine he just like started yelling at him or whatever. And he come outside, and he was like, "All right, man, here's your room key." And I was like, "Fuck yeah, dude, hell yeah." So took me to my room. He was like, "Dude, like drop your shit, let's go." So all right, took me to CIF, and the story goes on, right? But yeah, no, it was crazy because like I said, like I got there, like I had been assigned to a unit, I didn't even know what it was called, like. Like I was just standing there. They're like, here's your battalion. All right, cool. I don't really know where that is, what that means. Nothing like that. And like you had said, Julian, kind of the same thing when you had went to relax in Jackson. You kind of show up and like it's weird for you because like you've already been in, you've already had like a duty station under your belt, and then like you show up and they're like, who are you? And you're like, what do you mean?
Yeah, no, that was kind of a weird experience for me, especially. Okay, so for me, what ended up happening was I didn't make corporal until like the end of my Army career, right? So I, show up, I'm still not even an NCO. I had my P status, but I'm just, still specialist tiller. Every one of these guys or women, right, were E6 and up drill sergeants that I am processed with. And I'm just sitting there and I'm just like, yeah, dude. And so, at the time we had applied for a house, but, drill sergeants will get priority over just anybody else. Right. So I was on a waiting list. Luckily, my brother, John, and I say my brother, like I look at him as my brother because, we kind of came up together and everything like that. And he's just a really, really good friend that we try to take care of each other. I think he does a little more of that for me than I do for him though, because he's pretty squared away. Anyway, I was staying an hour off base. And so I was having to drive an hour every day to come and take care of in processing and then go an hour back home. And so that really sucked. And I was a scared little kid again, surrounded by a bunch of drill sergeants who I don't know. and then trying to maneuver in processing and finding my, where's my battalion at? Turns out it was just across the street. And then trying to find where my company was at, which was on the other side of Post. And it was just kind of crazy for like the first, I want to say 5 months before we got moved into our house on Post there. But yeah, man, one of the things I wanted to kind of touch on too, because I do want to go back to the music a little bit. I wanted to kind of get Carter's take on how he introduced Nick and I, because from what I remember, it was like peak COVID or something like that. We were all, if you weren't, what's the word for it? If you weren't like a
Quarantined.
No, not quarantine. Like hey,
like
we need you.
Like the non-essential workers.
Yeah. So if you were a non-essential worker,
yeah.
right? That's words, Julian. If you were a non-essential worker, you were able to stay at home in the house, just like pop up on a Zoom video call and be like, I'm alive, and then hang up, right? I was essential for quite a while, and then I got moved into non-essential status. So I was sitting at home for a little while, and I remember Carter being like, oh yeah, hey man, I got this friend who plays video games because I know you're on your PS4 and everything. And so here you go. Here's, let me reach out to him and get his username. And I think that's kind of like, I could be wrong on my recantation of that, but it'd be nice to hear Carter's take on how that all unfolded.
No, I think, I mean, that's pretty much exactly what I remember happening, was because we shouldn't have shit to do, man. So what are we going to do? We're going to be up on PlayStation for a little while, and hey man, like, you should hop on with my buddy because I know he's probably on right now too.
Yeah.
And and then you guys were pretty fast friends after that.
Well, I think for me it was a matter of like, getting to know this guy. He said some wild shit just online. We'll be gaming, he'll just come in with something random and just be like, hey yo, bada bit, bada boop, whatever he said,
Oh yeah.
It was just like, I was like, yo, like I would just bust out laughing. I'm like, did this motherfucker really just say that?
Everybody thinks they're the funny one until they start talking to Nick.
Oh yeah. And it was like, dude made me laugh. We played games together. We were able to like become friends. And then I remember it came to a point where like he needed a place to stay. And our mutual friend Gunnar was like, hey, Nick needs a place to stay. Can you help him out? Whatever. And I was like, shit, yeah, man. Like I got you. And he came to stay with me for a few days. And it was just like, ever since then, it was kind of like, he got busy with life, and then I got busy with life and everything. So we kept in contact, just not as often. And then when I got out, I was just like, hey, bud, I want to start a podcast, and I made him a guest on the first episode. And then I was like, bro, co-host with me.
Yeah, man.
So, and I just think it's funny because like that relationship wouldn't have been there if it hadn't been for you, Carter.
Well, shit, buddy. I mean, I don't know. I just, I like when my friends get to hang out with each other. I think that's cool as hell. I'm always excited for that.
Yeah. Do you think? So do you still have a home studio?
Oh yeah. It's a different house than the one you saw last time, and it's a better studio.
Well, do you think? Man, one of these days I want to have you on the podcast, but like in your studio. That would be cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I am right now. I just don't have the camera set up. Yeah.
Well, no. I'm saying like me go visit you because you're a hop, skip, and jump away from me right now, right? And like actually sit in a studio and talk about things.
Oh my God. Yeah, absolutely. And man, I got all the fancy mics and all the all the stupid shit. Yeah, man, I got all the toys.
Yeah. So real quick, I'm going to turn it over to you, Nick, so you can kind of talk about some of the stuff with him. What does the future for your music look like? Yeah,
we just got back from Tulsa last week, and we tracked a couple new songs. some of them we've been playing for a while, but we just couldn't really get them recorded until recently. So we got those ready to go. I'm just getting mixes tightened up on them, and April 9th is when the first one of those is going to be out. So Nick, I'll have to send you a link to those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I showed Julian the other night a little sneak preview. But yeah, once I get final mixes on them, that's going to be amazing. So super stoked about that, man.
Yeah. No, it'll be really nice to see like, the new things, because like I remember that night that, you took me to Walmart and everything. I remember you being like, "Hey man, you want to hear a song that I'm writing?" Yeah. Yeah, absolutely I do.
Oh, that's
It's
always like
like,
the worst thing you can hear from somebody too. Because the only
yeah,
thing you're thinking of is like, okay, when it's bad, how am I
right.
gonna how am I gonna respond to that?
Yeah. No. No. Well, it's funny too, because it's like looking back on it, I like think about like that moment, and I didn't think it was bad. I thought it was really good. I was like, in my mind, I was like, man, I think this dude should start a band. And then you were like, I think I'm gonna try to start a band. And I went, weird, So I'm like, all right, cool. But no, I'd definitely love to be able to hear like some of the new stuff that you guys are putting out. Do you have anything that you guys are like releasing soon, or what's like
Yeah.
the situation with that? Are you guys working on stuff, or?
So it's a bit of both. Yeah. So we got those two that we just got mixed.
Mhm.
So that first one is coming out on April 9th, and then the second one will be probably about a month after that. And so those are the two that we have kind of in the chamber right now, but we still have to write more and get those recorded. It's a lot. I mean, it's a lot easier in some ways to record and to make music with just me and a drummer. So at least in that way, it's we tend to arrange pretty quickly. We can iterate pretty quickly and kind of get stuff moving that way. But yeah, I mean, that's the goal for this whole year, is just get more music out and just make a lot of shit,
So
we
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
If you were to do like some promos and stuff like that on like podcasts, or maybe go around talking to friends and trying to figure out like how am I going to advertise and stuff like that, would you want to do that before the release and like maybe hype it up, or do it after the release and share what's already out there?
I probably want to do it after the release and share what's already out there. I think it, for me, it's usually pretty tough to start talking about something before it's out, because everybody goes, "This is really cool," but I can't do anything yet. Like I'm shocked. We were teasing that a little bit today, and some people are commenting, "Okay, I literally just marked my calendar, or I set a reminder for it," and I'm thinking, "Wow, like that's actually insane," because I would there's some bands that I love, and I'm still never gonna set my calendar reminders for the day their music drops. So
Right.
yeah, so I think probably after, then it's probably easier to drop a link and say, "Hey everybody, go over here."
Yeah, no, and that's understandable too. So getting back to kind of your musical journey, because I want to touch on it a little bit when it came to when you and I were jamming. What was the experience like for you when we connected on that musical level, and what was that journey like all the way up until you actually formed Topline Addicts and played your first show in Dallas?
Well, I think you and I jamming, it kind of felt like Rock Band boot camp. Like it was, because I had never really jammed with people before. I mean, I had played a little bit with some other guitar players. My my mom's ex-husband is a drummer, and so me and him used to jam when I was in high school. But that'd be like very, very kind of few and far between that we ended up doing that. Because I mean, I was just starting out playing guitar, and I was just like, I'm terrible. I don't want anybody to hear me. So I think by the time you and I started jamming, I had finally had a little bit of confidence to be like, oh yeah, I can play guitar, but I definitely didn't want to sing. So you and I just did like instrumental kind of stuff and just jam on riffs and that sort of deal. But that
Well, I remember sometimes you saying, like, especially whenever it came to like the beginnings of what eventually became Sweet Things.
Oh yeah, I mean, I just remember like that whole time that you and I were stationed together. I was driving up to Dallas, you know, every other weekend or whatever it was, and I remember that whole 3.5 hour drive. I was just kind of trying to teach myself how to sing. I just listened to Frank Sinatra and Billy Joel and just try to make my voice sound like that.
Yeah,
And
hey,
by the time
I'm
I
really
did
sorry. We kind of
Yeah.
cut out for a second.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, can you just repeat the beginning of that, like right before the whole Frank Sinatra
Yeah,
thing?
yeah. Just that, you know, I was driving up to Dallas every other week, and I was trying to use that opportunity to teach myself how to sing.
Yeah.
So I just had my 3.5 hour car playlist of just stuff I wanted to sing and stuff I wanted to sound like, and I would just do that because hey, at least I can sing in the car and be loud and wrong. But
Well, I
that
remember
was
there was also like it was also kind of like a really kind of just obscure, you know, completely different bands from each other kind of thing. Like you did Panic at the Disco, you did Billy Joel, you did Frank Sinatra, and the list goes on and on. But
exactly. Although it is a little funny thinking about that now, because Panic at the Disco did a lot of Frank Sinatra and a lot of Billy Joel covers. But I think for me at least, like creativity and songwriting is kind of about taking a lot of, you know, if I take 6 different songs that all sound completely different and I just make a Venn diagram, you know, or I just write the Venn diagram, you know, I write something that sounds a little bit like each of them. All of a sudden, everybody goes, you're an original, you know, you're a songwriter. It's like, well, I don't think about it like that. I just took bits and pieces from all this stuff that's completely different. Now, of course, if you do that with like 4 songs by the same band, then you're just Greta Van Fleet.
yeah.
You know, and
actually, it's really funny because Nick had a Greta Van Fleet song stuck in his head the other day.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I was listening to Heat Above by Greta Van Fleet. And I actually found out like fairly recently that, you know, I'm in Flint, Michigan right now, and I found out recently that they're from Frankenmuth, Michigan, which is about 25, 35 minutes like north of us, give or take.
yeah.
So I was like, oh no shit.
Oh,
But
dude, yeah.
but I wanted to ask you, you know, you had mentioned like kind of like, you know, listening to different things and kind of like putting stuff together. So like when you guys come up with new music, is it just like you plan it and like this is what like a general basis of what we want the music to be about, or is it kind of just like you listen to stuff and take bits and pieces from here and there and then it just kind of comes right off the dome?
So everybody kind of has a different process. So I'm not going to say this is how people write songs. It's just how I do it. But you know, what I start with is there's usually some kind of, usually it's on guitar. Sometimes it's a drum beat or a bass riff or something. But there's usually something that I'm like, oh, this sounds this sounds interesting. This is grabbing me. And I'll just do kind of a quick and dirty demo of like an instrumental. So I'll just throw down, hey, if this is a really cool riff, let me just write a bass part for it and drum part for it, just kind of getting it to stand up. And as long as that has some kind of a vibe, I'll just kind of sing nonsense lyrics over it. And, you know, the instrumental will continue to evolve once I start getting lyrics figured out. But I'll just sing nonsense words that sound cool together. So I don't even know half the time. I don't know what the song means until it's done. because I'm
But almost
just putting words together because they sound cool. And
right.
yeah.
So I just kind of wanted to like make a comment real quick. So it basically what you're saying is it kind of sounds like someone that doesn't listen to Red Hot Chili Peppers listen to Red Hot Chili Peppers. That's what you're saying. Is that's kind of what it sounds like.
Exactly.
So it's really funny that you say that though, Carter, because I in reference to the first episode again when we were talking about it, you were saying something along the lines of how you feel about "Gotta Thank God," which coincidentally enough is one of my favorite songs.
Oh, it's our worst
you have.
one.
But you're like, oh, that's our worst one because it's a song that sounds like it's trying to take itself seriously, but it's not.
Yeah. It's so, like I don't know. And that one was like, I still don't know what that song's about, man. I was just like, I don't know, these words sound kind of cool together, but it was a little too for me, I maybe this is just me trying to be a songwriter, elitist, whatever, but I'm just like, oh, like I'm not saying anything. And at least on the songs where, at least on the rest of the songs that I'm saying nothing, it's like we're both in on the joke.
Right.
Like if you listen to B. Arthur, like, okay, I'm singing a stupid song about the Golden Girls. Like, we're definitely both in on the joke for that one.
But yeah, we are. That one was amazing, man, because
well, and you named the song.
Oh, I did, man. I did. And it's, to me, it was like, oh, I'm honored, like that he took that and made that the name of the song.
Well, and that was one, yeah.
I was just gonna say it's funny because when we were jamming on that, I got like Airhead vibes, like Adam Sandler, Steve Buscemi, and
yeah,
Frazier, right? And when they're making their demands for the hostages and stuff, and he's like, and get me a picture of B. Arthur or something like that.
Yep. So well, and I remember because I remember I sent that riff to you and Dakota. I still have the screenshot from it. I'd sent that riff to you and Dakota, and I remember like I was thinking, oh, this is so cool. I don't know what to do with it, but it's like the super Gold Motel sounding riff. And and you had said, oh, you should just call it B. Arthur. She's golden.
Before I get any flack for that, I want to make it very clear. I've known who Gold Motel was since I was a kid, man. So it's not like I just didn't know. I just made a quippy joke about it at the time.
Yeah. It was funny though, and that was actually another one of those songs where that you kind of have the working title that you assume you're going to change later. So that was just, oh, let's play the B. Arthur jam. And then when I'm trying to work on lyrics for it, and I was working on working on the melody, I just kind of sat with my guitar and started recording like a voice note. And I just started like singing like gibberish words. And I was just doing the something's going on. Yeah, the Golden Girls are on. And
there you go.
Because it was the B. Arthur jam. So I'm like, all right, well, I'll change these later. And everything that I was trying to change it to was just taking itself too seriously. So I'm like, all right, screw it.
well, so now I kind of want to get into just, man, it's so great to have you on here. It's so great to like actually get to talk to you and meet and like with Nick here by my side and just everything right now to me is kind of just so awesome. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to bring us all up. Audience, you're not going to get to see Carter's face. Unfortunately, he doesn't have his camera set up. So sorry about that. But dude, I just want to hang out now, just for the last few minutes and just.
Hell yeah, man.
So,
ooh, can I share a quick story?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Because okay, so we brought up we were talking about Greta Van Fleet earlier. So Nick, I was on a date with this girl, probably about a year ago, and we're we're at this bar and she's like, "Oh, do you play music?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and of course I'm just like, downplay it. So I'm like, "Yeah, I'm we're pretty cool, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, I've been playing for a while." And she's like, "Oh, cool. Well, I used to jam with my cousins all the time. I'm not very good, but they have a band." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." And we kind of keep chatting. She keeps asking me to like show her stuff. And I'm like, "Hey, well, I don't know. I'll just show you later." And so we somehow, by a complete mystery, end up back at her hotel where she was staying.
Yeah,
And
total mystery.
total mystery how that happened.
Yeah, Scooby-Doo wouldn't have been able to figure that out.
No, sir. So, naturally, she's like, "Well, hey, you can finally pull up, your music." And I'm like, "All right, like, okay, fine.
Like,
I guess you really twisted my arm for that one." And so I pull it up, and she had mentioned she grew up in Michigan. She was wanting to move to like the Dallas area, and I pull up, I think it was Dance With Me, and she goes, "Oh, this is cool. Yeah, you guys sound this sounds a little better than my cousin's band, Greta Van Fleet." And I'm just like, "Gee, no,
you're like,
no."
Oh, yo. What did you say?
I'm like,
Yeah.
"You're full of shit, man." And then I remember like the next day she like texted me a picture of some magazine with those guys on it, and she's like, "Look, like my aunt just has these." Like, I'm just like, "Oh, yeah, you're
You're like, I gotta get out of here, dude.
yeah." I'm like, "The walls are closing in, bro."
Yeah. Yeah, there's no escape.
Yeah. Oh no, otherwise the next Topline Addicts single would be Highway Tune, and we can't have that.
Man,
Right,
that's so funny to be like, just like try to play the cool guy, like the cool mysterious, like, oh yeah, I'm a musician, whatever. And then like
I play
last
music,
minute,
whatever.
yeah, and then like last minute, and then getting compared to Greta Van Fleet, and you're just like, oh shit.
Yeah, she
Like,
she
like,
activated
I
the
gotta
trap
get out of
card.
here.
Yeah. She played, Blue Eyes White Dragon, and I was like, "Oh no." But yeah, I think that's pretty much been like anytime I don't know why I haven't figured it out, because anytime I've been on a date and I've been like, I'm gonna be cool and mysterious, immediately I'm just like, I just bomb. It's, oh my God, it's awful.
But
You're
the
like out
funny,
there like stuttering a lot, like you're trying to say hi, like, "Hey, my name's Carter," and then you like try to ask them like something about themselves, and you're like, "What you're like wiping the sweat from your forehead.
Well, it's like I remember when I was in Virginia, I was on this date, and we get in this restaurant. I just met this girl, so I don't know shit about her, and I'm just like, "Oh yeah, I mean, I play guitar." And she's like, "Oh cool, yeah, I play a few instruments. I play guitar and piano and drums, and I sing." And I'm like, "Shit, okay, cool. So like, I don't get any points for that one."
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I mean, yeah, I'm in the Army. So, and she's like, "Oh, cool. My dad was a Green Beret." And I'm just like, "God damn it. I'm screwed."
You're like, "Dude, I'm gonna get up."
Yeah. And I remember like the server comes by and is like asking for our order, and she just goes, "I don't really know what I want. Carter, you can just like pick something for me. But I'm like a super taster, so like my taste buds are all just really sensitive. So like spicy stuff is just really spicy, and salty stuff's like really salty. But just pick whatever."
God.
And I'm thinking, like, oh my God, I've
I would
sweat
have
my
just
hands.
got up and left at that point. I'd have been like,
Yeah, I'd be like picking the check to eat. You know what I mean?
Well, but honestly, what ended up happening was at that point, I'm just like, okay, I'm already gonna bomb, so like, I'm just gonna like not give a shit about anything, and I'm just
Yeah, like
gonna
just lean into it.
lean into it and be like, "Yeah, whatever." And it actually ended up going really well, because I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm fucked." Like, but this might as well just be fun. And sure enough, that actually ended up, being what turned it. But
it's like you just not giving a shit anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. As soon as
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, I don't give a shit.
You're like in your mind, like, I hope she hates this food. And she's like, oh my God, I love this. And you're like, hey, it's pretty good. You know?
Yeah.
I should do that more often.
Honestly, like a little bit. I remember she was talking about she's like, oh yeah, I love cooking, but I'm terrible at baking. So I was like, yeah, great. Let's just go to the store after dinner then, and let's just go get cupcake mix, and then we'll just go back to your place and like make cupcakes. Because I'm just at this point, I'm just trying to like piss her off.
Right.
I'm just like, oh yeah, you know that thing that you're bad at? We should go do that. And then she's like, that's a great idea. So we like go to Walmart after this and go get like cupcake mix, and then we end up back at her place mysteriously. You know, like Scooby-Doo is also not figuring that one out.
Yeah. Yeah. You have a serious track record with avoiding the gang, you know?
Such mystery.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
Do you remember like the day after you introduced me to Dakota? You and I went. So you took me to breakfast at Cracker Barrel. Do you remember that?
I do. And I remember
you
I
were
sent
like,
Dakota a picture of you, and he's like, "What the fuck? Did you just find your replacement?" Because I was I was about to PCS.
yeah. And you were like,
Finding
no,
your
it's not
replacement
like
harder.
that.
Yeah.
And you were like, no, it's not like that. And you're like, well, let's FaceTime him, see what he's doing. He wasn't busy. We FaceTimed him. He was like, I don't know, like, you know, y'all kind of look alike, but like, I don't know. It's not the original, you know? And then like the next day, do you remember like you gave me his phone number and him and I like texted a little bit, but like, so like we didn't really know each other because we hadn't met in person yet.
Yeah.
Do you remember when I ran out of toilet paper in my barracks and I was blowing his phone up while he was standing in formation?
Oh my
I was
God.
like, hey
Oh,
man,
God, dude.
I was like, hey dude, I know your room's open. Check me out, right? Like something wrong, right? Like I'm having an emergency right now. And he was like not answering. I just kept blowing his phone up. And finally he's like, yo, I'm in formation, like chill out. And I was like, yo, let me use your shitter, bro. And he was like, bro, no, you know what I mean? And I just kept calling him. And like he finally said yes, and he walks into his room as I'm like walking out of the bathroom. I'm like sweating, you know what I mean? My OCP top is like off, like my shirt is like untucked, you know what I mean? I've been in there for the last 10 minutes fighting for my life. And he was like, what the
Jesus.
fuck is wrong with you? And I was like, hi. Do you remember him telling you about that? And he was
Yeah,
like,
I
where
do,
the fuck
man.
did you find this guy?
Yeah. With the smoke pit, bro.
Dude.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
and then we became like best friends because I ended up like blowing up his shitter, so I was scared for my life, you know.
It's really funny how that works whenever you just like the dumbest shit in the world like ties you to another person forever. And like
Oh yeah, bro.
I don't think I have any funny stories like that, but I will say so in one of our other podcasts, we had a friend of ours come on. His name is Van, and when he met Nick for the first time to like kind of go over kind of show notes and stuff like that, what we'll be talking about, he told us a story about how when we first met, we were in processing in Korea, and we were all out in the gazebo, like the smoke pit outside of the in processing barracks. So we weren't allowed to drink in the building, but if you were 21 and over, you could drink outside the building, right? So there's this girl that just had a little too much to drink, and she kind of like ended up not knowing where she was and just kind of disoriented and stuff. So I was like, well, the building that you need is right here. She's like, what? And I was like, do you need help to the doorway? You know, whatever. So I helped her up to the doorway, and then I helped her up to the stairs. And I was like, okay, just go up the stairs, go up to the third floor, and then your rooms, you know, wherever your room is. And so when I got up and I left, and I was like, you know, trying to escort this girl, like, you know, here's the building you need to go to. This is the directions I'm giving you. Go ahead and go. Van was like, hey, yo, like, is this guy about to do something dubious? Like, what's going on? Like, what's his whole thing? And I came back and yeah, and I came back like immediately. I didn't even leave the first floor. I just showed her the stairwell, and I came back and he was like, "Oh my God, bro! Like, I thought I was gonna have to go fight a motherfucker." You know? And luckily, he ended up not. And after that, we ended up getting stationed in the same unit. So we were quick friends after that as well. It's about the funniest thing I got as far as.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's about the funniest thing I got as far as like crazy stuff, like how it brought us together. But Carterman, I really do thank you for being on here. I appreciate you participating in our bonus episode, and I can't wait to actually do a full episode with you, and get more into the music.
Dude, I'm so excited. Yeah, thanks so much for having me on, you guys, and stoked to come back on and share some of the new tunes. It's going to be a blast.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I will say before we get going, guys, if you liked everything that you saw in the bonus episode, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, share, hit the bell icon for notifications. If you'd like to see, or if you'd like to talk with us to maybe give suggestions on the show, or if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about the show, you can you can always hit us at the Tills4Thrills podcast at gmail.com. We'll try to get to everyone who emails in. You can also follow us on Rumble. The handle is @KryptonKill. On Facebook, you can go to the Tills4Thrills podcast page, and on YouTube, obviously, it's at Tills4Thrills. So I do appreciate you guys spending this time with us. Is there anything else that you have to say, Nick or Carter, before we end the show?
Oh man, I mean, like Julian said, man, it's great to be able to, sit here and catch up and get to chat with you. Also, for me, I'm super stoked, looking forward to the, the full episode, where we kind of delve a little bit deeper. But yeah, man, it was great to be able to sit here and chit chat with you, pick your brain a little bit. So I just wanted to appreciate and thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks guys so much. Yeah, it's been a blast, and next time is going to be absolutely amazing, and you're just gonna be stuck staring at my actual face.
Good, man. I mean, you got a pretty face, so.
Oh man, I love you guys.
Love you too, man. All right, guys, that was our bonus episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we look forward to bringing you more quality content in the future. Again, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, please do it. It's helping us, exponentially. You don't even understand how much we appreciate it. So we look forward to bringing you a new episode next week, where we take a deep dive into PTSD and how it affects people. So I hope you guys can tune in for that. With that said, deuces.